Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Lauren, and on this channel we talk about books, and today's video is one that I'm really excited about. I don't think I've ever done a video quite like this one before. I know I've done a favorites and fails, but this one is going to be in particular, specifically, my favorite books so far in the first quarter of the year. I can't believe we've already wrapped up the first quarter of the year. We're entering the second quarter. April is also halfway done at this point, which is just crazy. So today I am going through my favorite books from January, February, and March. I'm just picking one book from each month to make it short and sweet. One of the months, it's a little difficult to pick my favorite book because I had some really good reads in February, and I have to say it was kind of hard to choose between two books. And funny enough, they had kind of similar plotting, but both of these books I actually gave 5 stars. So picking which one was my favorite 5-star was definitely difficult. I went back and forth quite a few times, but ultimately I did choose. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on my favorite books of Q1 of 2026. My favorite read in January was definitely Immortal Consequences. If you've watched my channel for a while, you will have seen my January reading wrap up where I talk about this book. I started this book in October, late October, early November of 2025, and I just slowly digested this book, not because it was bad or unenjoyable. I just kind of dragged it out because it was so interesting and I had so much fun reading it. And we have a lot of main characters in this book, 6 to be exact, and they're all very multifaceted. They all have their own history, they all have their own motives, and so it is and can be quite a lot to follow and keep track of, and not necessarily hold your interest, because it's definitely interesting. I just felt like this book was more enjoyable read at a slower pace. That just was my opinion. So it did take me quite some time to read. I would not say it is a difficult read. It's easy to follow. The writing isn't overly complicated or anything like that. Just for whatever reason, this book did take me some time to get through, but that isn't a knock on the book, obviously, since it was my favorite read that I ultimately finished in January. So I am considering this a January read, even though it was read throughout multiple months leading up to January. We do follow 6 main characters. They are students, if you will, at Blackwood Academy, which is a prestigious, if you can call it that, university on the edge of the afterlife. So all of our characters are deceased. Upon their death, their souls were chosen to come down to Blackwood Academy, and they are studying the arts of magic, and they are learning how to ferry souls to the afterlife or condemn them to purgatory, which will eventually happen to them as well. To avoid this from happening, there is an opportunity to enter a competition that is very trial based, and the winner of this competition either gets to choose to ascend, which essentially secures their position in Blackwood, and they do not have to choose to move over onto the other side, which is, you know, an area that no one knows anything about, because once you cross over to the other side, there is no coming back. So no one really knows what happens to your soul. Do you find peace? Is it eternal purgatory? No one really knows. So the end goal is definitely to become ascended within the university. In achieving ascension, you, of course, gain your eternal acceptance into the university, but you also kind of secure your soul to never fade away. So that is what these characters are fighting for. Now, within this story, we do have, like I mentioned, 6 main characters, and they all have different motives. They all have different reasons why they are within this competition and why they want to become ascended. Some of them, ascension is more urgent than others. Some of them are harboring really dark secrets. Some of them are going to betray one another. And this book has a lot of twists and turns, a lot of betrayal, a really sketchy headmaster, but who wouldn't expect that in the University for the Dead? The ending of this book was really, really phenomenal. It sets you up perfectly for book number 2. I'm not quite sure when the second installment of this series is coming out. I can definitely look it up and not link it, but mention it down in the comments for you guys. If you have not read this book, I definitely recommend it. It was a lot of fun. Like I mentioned in the intro, February was a really difficult month to choose a favorite. I had a handful of wonderful reads the month of February. I read Metal Slinger in February. Well, I listened to that one on Audible, and it was a full cast, and it was delightful, and it was a whirlwind of a story. I read Arcana Academy, which I gave 5 stars. I loved that book. And another book that I listened to on Audible was A Vow in Vengeance. Also absolutely loved that book. Ultimately, it came between A Vow in Vengeance and Arcana Academy. I did read Arcana Academy physically, and like I mentioned, I listened to A Vow in Vengeance on Audible. It wasn't dramatized, but it was a full cast, and it was an English cast, like British, and it was just, they may have been Irish, to be honest. I think some of them, either way, they were from across the pond, and I loved that. I absolutely ate it up. So I think because of that element, I did end up putting Vow and Vengeance, which I don't have the physical copy, but here's what the cover looks like. I did put that for my favorite February read. Now, if I would have listened to Arcana Academy on Audible and it also had an English cast, which I don't think it would have, but who knows, I feel like it would have been a knockout, drag-out fight. But I did ultimately choose to listen to A Vow in Vengeance before continuing on with reading Arcana Academy. And I think it was because of the Audible experience with their accents. It was a full cast. So I realized that that doesn't really have anything to do with the story, the book per se, but the stories, both of these books story-wise hooked me. I don't know which one I loved better. When book 2 comes out for both of these books, I will run to buy both of them. So I had to think about other things that impacted my joy when reading or consuming these books, and because of the Audible experience with A Vow in Vengeance, I went with that one. Now, from a rating standpoint, I rated them the exact same. I gave them both 5 stars, so I didn't overrate A Vow in Vengeance because the cast was spectacular. That has nothing to do with the actual story. But when I have to choose between 2 5 stars, I have to, think about everything. And that was definitely, I guess, a criteria check mark that this book didn't have. It wasn't awarded, that opportunity. So yes, for February, I did ultimately go with A Vow in Vengeance. For March, my favorite read was Heir of Illusion, with an honorary mention of The Rose Bargain. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. It was a lot of fun, but ultimately, Air of Illusion did take the winning spot for March. We follow Ivy. She is half assassin, half mistress to the king that she worships. I want to say he is a fae. His identity is kind of elusive, but I do know that he does not age. So I want to say his true identity is fae. Ivy is gifted with the power to hide herself, make herself invisible. That is her like illusion magic. Everyone in the kingdom has different areas of magic, unless they're mortal, of course. But the magical beings of the kingdom, they all have different types of magic, and hers is that of illusion magic, and her illusion is that she can become invisible. And she wants to break free of the king. Unfortunately, she does wear a magical necklace. It is a binding necklace, and it allows the king that she serves to control her magic and also command her magic. And this is how he kind of elicits her skills in and her being his assassin. When he gives an order through the magical ruby necklace, she has like the impulse to ultimately do whatever he says. So it's very difficult for her to deny his command. There is rumors that there is a magical sword that is kind of like in the catacombs of the palace that she lives. And so she starts to kind of plot a way to retrieve this sword in hopes to cut the necklace off. But in comes Thorn. He is a reaper, and he's also after this magical sword. So throughout the story, we follow Thorn and Ivy's unlikely alliance, their journey through trying to find this sword, how Ivy navigates this low-key betrayal to the king while also trying to gain her independence and her freedom. And Thorn also isn't a very straightforward character. He definitely has secrets of his own and his own ambitions and his own reasons why he wants to find this sword. Some not so forthcoming as others. He's definitely a secretive and kind of like bombshelly character. We definitely learn more about Thorn towards the end of the book. And the last chapter, the epilogue of this book, is in Thorn's POV, but it's not necessarily his ending opinions or his ending feelings towards Ivy. You kind of see him when he first meets Ivy and his thoughts and feelings upon that initial encounter with her. So it kind of leaves you wondering where their relationship stands and what Thorn plans to do with Ivy now that she is in his grasp. And this book was so much fun. Some of it could be a little predictable at times, but the writing of this book was just really fun. It kept me anyways, entertained and engulfed in the story and what was going to happen next. I will say my favorite part about this book was the last few chapters. You really got some bombshell information, and I definitely enjoyed the epilogue and Thorn's point of view. I love a switch up in POV. I love when we have a male and female main character and we get perspectives from both of them, especially when their characterized personality is so polar opposite and their life experiences are so opposite. So of course that drives their perspective to be also very opposite. And Thorn is definitely one of those characters where he is ambiguous and certainly morally gray. We kind of go from playful enemies to cautious lovers back to, are we going to be enemies again, but in a more serious way than before. It's just a really fun and well thought out and well developed dynamic between these two, and I cannot wait for book 2 to come out. All right, you guys, well, that does it. Short and sweet video today. Let me know down in the comments, what are your favorite reads from January, February, and March? I always love to hear what you guys are reading, especially your favorite reads. Let me know down in the comments. Maybe it's a book I need to pick up. Well, again, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.